What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down why the market was looking quite weak yesterday after we got Amazon and Apple's earnings. But despite that, we got a very, very big bounce after we got some big news from China that's helping the market push very, very nicely. I'm also going to talk about why next week is going to be very important as we have the FOMC meeting and lots of big earnings coming out. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. Moomoo is an amazing global brokerage account that consists of many exclusive offers. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. Deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60. You also qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends on June 3rd. I also promote this because if you keep at least $100 in the account, you will qualify for free level 2 data. It's very useful for understanding market insights, what's happening with liquidity zones, and what's going on with the options chains to really better your guys' trading and investing journeys. So check out my link down below. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So as far as SPY is going, we were looking weak yesterday. I'm going to be very honest about this. So we got some bad news when it came to the big tech earnings. If you guys were looking at Amazon and Apple, we went over this already. Apple was expecting about $900 million more in costs for the next quarter. And then there was some fear about the tariffs affecting companies like Amazon. That's why we saw the market dump yesterday. And that's why I was concerned about us dipping a little bit more. But one thing you guys have to remember is that, yes, the majority of the time we can, anticipate a lot of things coming based off technical analysis and based off different factors. But there could always be a new piece of news that comes out. President Trump could always say something, and Jerome Powell could say something, whatever it is, and the market could always change course when you least expect it. So sometimes that can happen. And in this case, that is what happened because all of a sudden the market got a big bounce and it continued to push after we got some huge news. The news was that China is evaluating an offer from the US to hold talks on tariffs. And that's absolutely massive because in the beginning, it was always President Trump who was saying that, hey, the US is negotiating with China. A big deal is going to be coming. He even claims he received some calls from the leader of China known as Xi. But instead, the Chinese officials, the Chinese commerce minister, and all these people were saying it's not true. There's no negotiations going on. They were saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks. And for the first time, the first time we've heard the Chinese Commerce Ministry come out and they are saying that there's going to be a lot of negotiations. They want to talk and convey a lot of information that's relevant for both parties, and they hope that the US could once again come up with a deal. They mentioned they are incentivized to get a good deal and they want to negotiate about these tariffs. That's some massive, massive news because with that happening, it's going to cause a lot of volatility. It's going to cause a lot of upside for the markets, and the market's very optimistic about this. Even Amazon, which was down, almost 3% yesterday, it made a full recovery. It was only down 0.12% for the close. It was actually green for a lot of today. My point is, we saw a big bounce. Apple was down 4%. Now it closed down only like 3%, so it did bounce a little bit. So you guys could see that the markets got a very, very nice bounce because of this news. So what does this mean for the future? As you guys could tell, the trend on SPY is technically bullish. Now, there is some tough resistance at 5, 6, 7, so we'll see if we come down just a little bit before we attempt to go higher. But if President Trump and his team announced that there's going to be a deal with China, if it comes out, we could be launching for the 570s on SPY and the 490s for the QQQ. So I'll talk more about the charts in just a couple of minutes. I want to clarify a lot of things, but I first want to talk about what's happening with the news and also next week as we have Jerome Powell and FOMC. So let's talk about the news first and I'll break down the charts. As a reminder, the market was bloody red during the after hours yesterday. We saw SPY dumping, the QQQ was dumping, everything was dumping after we saw the big tech stocks selling off, which is why I did give you guys a warning about that. But then this Chinese news was so powerful, it caused the whole market to get a big bounce. Every single stock almost turned green except for Apple. Even Amazon almost made a full recovery. Not bad whatsoever, so please keep that in mind. Once again, going over the news, the Chinese Commerce Ministry is very, very optimistic, and they mentioned that they want to see lots of trade talks continue. They are open to negotiations, and they're saying that once again, they do not want a bad deal. They want a good deal. So that's huge, huge, huge news. We also heard many important figures, such as the US Treasury Secretary, say that they're confident that the Chinese will want to reach a deal, and that's going to be a multi-step process. So that's some big news. On top of this, we got some unemployment numbers. The US added 177,000 jobs in April. That's more than the forecast, and unemployment stayed at only 4.2%, which is not too bad. Overall, good news for the stock market. That's why we started to run. Keep in mind that all the news that was coming out involving the fact that, there's been supply chain disruptions and such, that was really hurting China, as President Trump mentioned. President Trump actually said that, China is getting hurt tremendously. He said that yesterday, and that they're going to be negotiating a deal. And he ended up being correct. Now China wants to negotiate. So that is what's happening so far. Now, I also want to add that when it comes to President Trump, he signed some more orders. He basically wanted to get rid of the exemptions for lots of loopholes in the tariffs. Basically, in China, for lots of e-commerce companies, they were able to actually get around some of the tariffs if the products were under $800, and he wanted to get rid of that rule. Obviously, this would be affecting tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods. So that's the reason why we saw many of them subjected to about like 50 to 145% tariffs, depending on the products themselves. And then this did end up increasing the odds of China caving in. So that's part of why China ended up caving in. To add on to this, there's been some news about how, as a result of that, now China wants to exempt a lot of US products from tariffs. So the news is coming out that China has quietly started to exempt some US goods from tariffs that likely cover around $40 billion worth of imports. That's another efforts to soften the blow from the trade war. So instead of making things more tense, instead of fighting back, now they're cooling off. They're trying to decrease these tariffs, and the market loved this. This is why the market started to push even higher. So that's some big news. Although we don't have all the specific details about all the goods, there are some reports saying that this could be including pharmaceuticals, about 131 different products, and these exemptions could just be the start of another big set of negotiations to be coming. On top of this, with that going on, there's been some more talk about how many big officials from Deutsche Bank and other big banks say that the US could be announcing a deal with China very soon, and they're going to be continuing to talk over the weekend and such. And President Trump was talking about this for a while. He said that there's a lot of potential trade deals to be announced with the US and India, with South Korea, with Japan. And now President Trump is talking about China, how China is going to be a big one. So get ready for all of that. And if we do get some kind of deal between the US and China, that could launch the market even higher. I also want to add that President Trump talked about Jerome Powell. He mentioned that he's not happy with Jerome Powell. President Trump said he's more knowledgeable about interest rates than Powell, and that he needs to bring down rates as soon as possible. So President Trump is saying we need a cuts to be coming. And he's also saying this because we're very close to FOMC. So as a reminder, when it comes to the market is still fearful. It's making up the majority of sentiment, but we're becoming less fearful than before as we're getting close to neutral. Momentum is also at extreme fear, but it's becoming less fearful than before. So keep that in mind. For the put to call option ratio, it's dipping as we're starting to see a lot more of these buyers stepping in. So we're seeing less puts. And also the VIX is remaining more neutral as it's continuing to dip. So keep that in mind. So buyers are returning. They're excited. For earnings, keep in mind that next week on Monday, we have Berkshire Hathaway, Ford, and Palantir. On Tuesday, we have Celsius, Datadog, AMD, Rivian, and Supermicro after market close on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have Uber and Walt Disney, not to mention Carvana and ARM. And then on Thursday, we have Peloton and Shopify before market open. And then we have Coinbase and many others after market close. Friday is going to be very quiet, but don't forget there's typically bigger earnings that come out. So keep that in mind. Last but not least, we also have other big earnings and more reports coming out. On Monday, okay, we have the ISM services data, which could cause some more volatility. Tuesday is going to be very quiet. Wednesday is going to be huge because later on during the day at 2 p.m., we have the Fed interest rate decision and we have the FOMC meeting with Jerome Powell giving a speech, which could cause a lot of volatility. Will the Fed cut? As of right now, there's like a 90% chance plus that they're going to be keeping rates the same, but there could be a cut coming as soon as July, according to reports, which is just a couple of months away. And then for Thursday, we have an initial jobless claims. And then Friday, we have lots of Fed speakers. So watch that all very carefully. With that being said, let's focus on the charts. What's going to likely happen? So I want to mention that SPY does have a tough resistance near 567.5. We'll see if we break past that or not. If we don't, we might come down just a little bit to kind of consolidate between 565 and 567. But later on, if we get a big deal from the Trump administration involving China or India and these countries, we could be looking for a temporary move towards the 570s. It is possibly pushed to 570 to 575. Now, keep in mind, I'm now seeing a giant rising wedge on SPY, which typically leads to a bearish outcome. But as of right now, there's no sign of us truly breaking out of it. So we are bullish for now. We might retest 565 and consolidate for some time. So please keep that in mind. There might be a little bit of consolidation to start things off. But despite that, and as time goes on, there's a very, very good chance that we could try to recover. And if we get some deal involving China, if we get more talk about a trade deal, the market may try to push higher, at least temporarily. So there could be another attempt to push for the 570s on SPY. We're still looking bullish, no sign of weakness. Unless we end up losing like 555 to turn back down, we're looking bullish. On the QQQ, we're looking strong. I want to mention that there's a high up here at 494. We could be trying to go up there if we try to hold above 490. For now, there's a tough resistance there. We could try to retest like 486, and we'll see if we bounce off that for the 490s. But nonetheless, we're still looking bullish. We're doing a good job. We could retest like 486, and we'll see if we bounce off that for 494. Nonetheless, we're looking quite bullish. For the IWM, if we end up losing 198, we could turn back down. As long as we're above this, though, we could be looking for some consolidation between 198 and 200, and eventually a push for 202, then 205. On ES, we're looking bullish. Now, if we want to be bearish, you want to see us lose 56.27. As long as we're above that, and if we get some more trade deals, we're going to be looking for an attempt for like 57.50 for the time being. For NQ, I need to see this hold above 20,000. So long as we do, we're looking for 20,250 and eventually 20,500 as our targets. We look bullish nonetheless. Bitcoin's looking decent. It might retest 96,000. We'll see if we bounce off that. It's just consolidating right now, so it needs a little bit more time. Tesla is also trying to break out here. It looks strong, but we need confirmation first. If we break 292, this is going to be looking like a nice flag breakout for the 300s. If we can't break that, we could turn back down. So we'll see. But this is what I think is going to happen. So basically, we have a flag right over here. You guys can see that this is like the pole. We're looking like this. We're getting tight in this range. We will see if Tesla consolidates a bit longer before it attempts to break out. If we get back above 292, we're looking for a big push. To be bearish, you want to lose support right over here at 270 to start dumping. As of right now, we're holding support right over here and we're trying to get back up. So we could be looking for a consolidation and maybe an attempt to break. If Jerome Powell implies there could be a rate cut coming, if he's optimistic, that could also launch this thing higher for 300. So there is some upside potential nonetheless. Nvidia is looking decent. There's a nice accumulation right here. We also have a higher low breakout, but the problem with Nvidia is that we need to get back above 115 to push for essentially 120. If we lose 112, we're looking for 110 to be dipping back down, but overall there is some upside potential, so keep that in mind. On Apple, I need to see this get back above 207. If we break that, we're looking for an attempt to go higher. If we lose 202, we could turn back down, but I do see potential in this nonetheless. Netflix needs to get back above 1150 and hold that to push for 1175. Looks bullish. I'm going to skip over a lot of these and talk more about the others later on. But for Coinbase, we're consolidating in this range. There is a flag forming. So if we do break 208, there could be an attempt to push for like 212 plus. So there's potential in this, especially when you zoom out. We also have this like inverse head and shoulders. So it may consolidate in this flag before it tries to break out later on. For Amazon, I want to see us get back above 192.75 to really continue. I see some consolidation here between 188 and 192 for some time, but I do think it could try to break now because of a potential tariff deal between the US and China. That could be very big for Amazon. So there's potential if 192 breaks for us to get to 300. Meta, if we get back above 600, we're looking for an attempt for basically 610 plus. If we end up losing 590, we're looking for a dip back down to 574, but there is upside potential for the 600s. So hold above 600, we're looking for 620. Microsoft, it has a giant gap to fill in the daily to about 442. Might be pushing there again. So far, so good, especially if we get a big trade deal. So there's potential for it to go higher. On Google, we need to hold 165. If that holds, we're looking for an attempt for 168 to 170. And then the last but not least, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the VIX. It has a falling wedge. There's a gap to fill. So we're going to see if this gets a breakout. There is a gap to fill up here at almost 40. So there's going to be another moment this thing rallies, right? There's going to be another moment the market gets a big rug pull in the future. Okay, SPY still has a gap to fill all the way down in like the 520s. There will be another rug pull one day. But as of right now, we're not ready. We're not ready for the rug pull yet. The market is still bullish for now. So with the trade deals and all that's coming, the market could try to push a bit higher, but we'll see what happens in the future, maybe many weeks out. There could still be a rug pull brewing with this falling wedge on the VIX. It could happen soon, but there's no sign of it yet. So the market could go a little bit higher, and then we'll see what ends up happening as time goes on. Will we get some kind of breakout? We don't want to just start shorting blindly for no reason because the market could still go higher. We need to wait for confirmation of a breakout. There's no sign of that yet, so we'll see how it goes, and we'll see what happens with these trade deals between the US and China. The US markets may see some consolidation for now, but then there could be more upside coming a little bit later, thanks to like FOMC, thanks to like a potential trade deal between the US and China, and more news that's coming out. So I'll keep you guys updated as time goes on. I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy your weekend, and I'll be back very soon with another upload. Thank you for listening, and peace out.